Welcome to the True Crime Stories channel. Ashwood Falls, Oregon. A postcard town nestled in a valley, hugged by tall pines and a cold, clear river. Life here had a rhythm, a steady, comforting beat. The high school was the town's heart, Friday night football, bake sales, and a sense of safety that felt absolute. Doors were left unlocked. Neighbors looked out for each other. Trust was the foundation, but trust can be fragile. Sometimes, darkness hides in the most familiar places. At the center of this picture was Peter Hallwell, Mr. Hallwell to his students. More than a history teacher, he was a fixture in the town, woven into its fabric. He'd taught for nearly 2 decades, remembered parents as teenagers, and was seen as a steady, kind voice. No one could have imagined the secret he kept. This is a story about a man who wore a mask of kindness so perfect it fooled an entire town. Evil can walk among us, unnoticed. It begins not with a scream, but with a quiet observation, a small, unsettling detail. For one student, it was the first thread in a tapestry of horror. Once pulled, it would unravel everything Ashwood Falls thought it knew about safety, trust, and the man they welcomed into their lives. In Ashwood Falls, secrets weren't supposed to exist, but they did. The year was 2024. The summer had been warm, the days long and lazy. As fall approached, the familiar routine began again. School buses rumbled down quiet streets, the scent of fallen leaves mixed with crisp air. Parents sent their children to Ashwood Falls High with a sense of security. This was a place where everyone knew your name and your business. The seasons painted the town in predictable, beautiful strokes, but beneath the well-manicured lawns and friendly smiles, something was waiting. The people of Ashwood Falls were about to learn how quickly trust can shatter. Sometimes the deepest darkness is right where you least expect it, and sometimes it's the person you trust the most. Peter Hallwell was the teacher every parent wanted for their child. He made history come alive, and his classroom was a haven for students, especially the quiet ones. He connected with those who felt left out, making them feel seen and important. Parents and students adored him. He led the history club, coached the debate team, and volunteered at every school event. If a student needed help, his door was always open. He was the first to arrive, the last to leave. His dedication was legendary. At parent-teacher conferences, he spoke with insight and care, offering advice beyond academics. "He just gets kids," one mother would later recall. This trust gave him access and influence, a protective shield made of gratitude and respect. No one ever thought to look closer. He moved through town as a beloved figure, always stopping to chat, attending church, donating to charities. His life seemed an open book, filled with kindness and service. He was Mr. Hallwell, the good teacher, the helpful neighbor, the man who could do no wrong. But this image was a flawless deception. It allowed the monster within to remain hidden, biding its time in the shadows of their trust. No one suspected the truth. The town's faith in him was absolute, and that was exactly how he wanted it. Sometimes, the most dangerous people are the ones we trust the most. In Ashwood Falls, no one saw the mask slip until it was too late. The first sign was almost invisible. Lucas Brent, a quiet junior and history club member, confided in his friend Sarah. He said Mr. Hallwell sometimes asked strange personal questions about his family, about loneliness. Hallwell's car was often parked near Lucas's house late at night. Sarah brushed it off. "He's just being nice," she said. Lucas tried to believe her, but unease lingered. Then Hallwell invited Lucas to his house to help with a project. Lucas felt uncomfortable, but didn't want to offend his teacher or risk his grade. A few days later, Lucas told Sarah he'd changed his mind. Hallwell had promised extra credit. "It'll be fine," he said, trying to convince himself. That was the last conversation Sarah ever had with her best friend. On a bright Thursday afternoon, Lucas Brent disappeared. His parents called the police when he didn't come home. They told officers Lucas was responsible, not the type to run away. He was supposed to be at his teacher's house. When questioned, Peter Hallwell was the picture of concern. He said Lucas never showed up, that he waited for an hour, then assumed the boy had forgotten. He offered to help in any way he could. His performance was flawless. The police believed him. In Ashwood Falls, the unimaginable had begun. A single thread had been pulled, and the fabric of trust was starting to unravel. But no one realized it yet, not until it was far too late. Sometimes evil hides behind the most ordinary doors. Lucas Brent's disappearance sent shockwaves through Ashwood Falls. Search parties combed the woods and riverbanks. Flyers with Lucas's face appeared everywhere. The community rallied, holding vigils and bringing in grief counselors. The high school halls grew silent, heavy with fear. Everyone had a theory, but no one suspected the man pleading for Lucas's safe return at the school assembly. The police investigation stalled. No struggle, no witnesses, no ransom note. Hallwell was questioned multiple times. His story never changed. He had an alibi. He was just another worried member of the community. Weeks passed. Hope faded. The town tried to move on, but fear lingered. Then it happened again. Jamie Ritter, a sophomore and history club member, went missing. He told his parents he was going to Mr. Hall's house for extra help. He never came home. Now, panic gripped the town. This was no longer an isolated tragedy. It was a pattern. Parents kept their children home. Streets emptied after dark. The police re-examined everything, looking at Hallwell again. But he had an alibi for Jamie's disappearance too. He remained untouchable, wrapped in his reputation. The fear in Ashwood Falls was now impossible to ignore. The town's trust was shattered, and the monster was still among them. The question was, how many more would it take before the truth came out? Sometimes, the most obvious answers are the hardest to see. The darkness was closing in, and Ashwood Falls was running out of time. The nightmare was only beginning. The town's innocence was gone, and the real horror was still to be discovered. Evil had found a home in Ashwood Falls. The break in the case came from an unexpected place, a neighbor's complaint about a bad smell. Martha Higgins, Hallwell's elderly neighbor, noticed a strange chemical odor coming from his basement. At first, she thought it was a dead animal, but the smell grew stronger, seeping into her home. Reluctantly, she called the police. An officer arrived, expecting a routine call. Hallwell greeted him with a smile, explaining it was a plumbing problem. He'd used industrial drain cleaner. The explanation seemed plausible, but the officer sensed something was off. He asked to see the basement. For the first time, Hallwell's composure cracked. He refused, saying the fumes were dangerous and the basement was a mess. That refusal was the red flag the officer needed. It was enough to seek a search warrant. Sometimes, it's the smallest detail that unravels the biggest secrets. The town's nightmare was about to be exposed. The mask was slipping, and the truth was more horrifying than anyone could imagine. Evil had been hiding in plain sight. All it took was a neighbor's nose and a persistent officer to bring it to light. The walls of trust were about to come crashing down. Ashwood Falls would never be the same. The monster's lair was about to be revealed, and the town's darkest secret was waiting in the basement. Sometimes the truth is buried just beneath the surface. All it takes is one person to dig it up. With a search warrant, police returned to Hallwell's house. The smell was overwhelming, a sickening mix of chemicals and decay. The basement was neat, except for a large plastic tarp. Underneath, police found 2 sealed storage containers, one leaking, the source of the odor. Inside were the bodies of Lucas Brent and Jamie Ritter. The scene was a nightmare. Restraints, chemicals, and tools revealed a hidden life of horror. The evidence was irrefutable. In a locked desk drawer, police found a journal, Hallwell's manifesto. It detailed his obsessions, his methods, and how he selected his victims, quiet, trusting boys. The motive was control, a twisted desire to play God. At the back of the journal was a list of names, some with check marks. Some were current students, others former. The police now faced a chilling question. Were Lucas and Jamie his only victims, or were there more? The mask was gone, the monster was revealed, and Ashwood Falls would never be the same. The truth was out, the nightmare was real, and the story was far from over. Hallwell's journal was a meticulous record of his double life. He wrote about feeling invisible, resentful, and powerless, except in his classroom, his kingdom. He described grooming his targets, learning their vulnerabilities, and exploiting their trust. The entries about Lucas and Jamie were chilling. He chronicled their hopes while planning their deaths. The list of names launched a nationwide investigation. Detectives reopened cold cases from other towns where Hallwell had lived or visited. Some names had check marks, suggesting more victims. The journal showed no remorse, only pride in his deception. He mocked the town's grief, seeing it as proof of his success. The kind, caring Mr. Hallwell was a fiction. The real man was a cold, calculating predator. The journal was the final, undeniable proof. Ashwood Falls had harbored a monster, and the scars would last forever. Evil had worn a friendly face. Hallwell's arrest shattered Ashwood Falls. Disbelief turned to betrayal and grief. The school became a memorial, flowers, notes, and 2 empty desks draped in black. Students walked the halls in silence, trust broken. The town's identity was forever changed. Parents eyed teachers with suspicion, children were taught to be wary. The sense of safety was gone. Hallwell's trial was a media circus. He was sentenced to life without parole. The school established scholarships and a memorial garden for Lucas and Jamie, but the scars remained. The story of Mr. Hallwell became a cautionary tale, a dark chapter passed down through generations. The heart of Ashwood Falls was wounded. Life's rhythm returned, but it was more cautious, more somber. The town's innocence was lost. The ghosts of Hallwell's crimes lingered. Ashwood Falls would never forget. The lesson was seared into memory. Trust, once broken, is never the same. And sometimes, the greatest danger is the one you never see coming. The story of Peter Hallwell is a chilling reminder. Evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it wears a friendly face and speaks in a kind voice. We build our communities on trust, but that trust can be exploited. Hallwell used the town's faith as a shield for his crimes. He turned trust into a weapon, making himself invisible. This case forces us to ask, how well do we really know those around us? The story isn't a call for constant fear, but for awareness. Listen to your intuition, the feeling that something isn't right. Ashwood Falls became a symbol of paradise lost. Darkness can fester anywhere, even in the most idyllic places. True security comes from vigilance, not just locked doors. The most important secrets are often hidden in plain sight. Sometimes, all it takes is someone willing to notice.